In this video, I'm going to show you how to use VS Code right from the very beginning. If you open VS Code and it feels a bit confusing at first, don't worry. By the end of this video, you'll know what the main areas do, how to open a project folder, how to create your first files, how to preview a simple website in your browser, how to format your code, and how to use the terminal and shortcuts without feeling lost. We're going to keep everything beginner-friendly and practical, so let's jump right in. To get started, I'm going to open my browser and search for VS Code on Google. In the search results, I'll look for the official Visual Studio Code website. The official website is code.visualstudio.com, so let's go ahead and open it. And here we are on the official website for Visual Studio Code. And yes, the full name is Visual Studio Code, but almost everyone just calls it VS Code. On the website, you'll see a download button right here. Since I'm using a Mac, this button will automatically download the Mac version for me. If you're using Windows, you'll likely see the download button for Windows instead. The installation process itself is very easy and straightforward. Once it's downloaded, just open the installer and follow the standard steps for your operating system. I already have it installed, so I'll go ahead and open it up. Now let's take a quick look at what you'll see on the screen inside VS Code. First, let's close this Welcome tab. We won't really need it for now. On the left side, you'll notice this vertical bar with a few different icons. This is called the Activity bar. The first icon opens the Explorer. This is where all your files and folders will show up. The second icon is for Search. This is where you can search for specific things within your project. Next, we have Source Control. This is related to Git, which helps you track changes in your code. Then we have Run and Debug. This is used for running your code and finding problems when something isn't working quite right. And finally, we have Extensions. This is where you can add extra features and tools to VS Code. Right in the middle, we have the main editor area. This is where your files will open whenever you start working. Moving to the bottom, we have the status bar. This bar shows helpful information about your current file and workspace. Now let's open the command palette. If you're on a Mac, you can press Command-Shift-P. If you're using Windows, the shortcut is Control-Shift-P. This opens a search box where you can easily find any VS Code command. If you need to close it, just press the Escape key. Next, let me show you how to access the settings. I'll open the command palette again and search for Settings. In Settings, you can customize things like your theme, font size, autosave, formatting, and other VS Code preferences. And finally, I'm going to show you where to find the terminal. You can open it simply by clicking this icon in the top right corner. Terminal is useful when you're creating your server or working on frameworks like React or Next.js. Next, let's create some files in and work on them in VS Code. A best practice is to create a dedicated folder first, rather than just making random files and opening them individually. Since I'm on a Mac, I'll start by opening Finder. I'm going to create a new folder specifically for this project. You can save it wherever you usually keep your coding projects. For this tutorial, I'll create it on my desktop so it's easy to find. Let's name this folder My First Project. Now, heading back to VS Code, I'm going to click Open Folder. I'll select the folder we just created and open it. VS Code might ask if you trust the authors of the files in this folder. Since we created this folder ourselves, you can click Yes, I trust the authors. In the Explorer on the left, you can see our folder name at the top. This confirms that VS Code is now working directly inside our project folder. Now let's create our very first file. In the Explorer, I'm going to click the New File icon. I'll name it index.html and press enter. First, this file will handle our page structure. Next, I'll name the second file style.css, which will be used for our styles. The last one is app.js, which is where we'll put our JavaScript. With that, we have all three files ready inside our project folder. Now, let's add just enough code to see how VS Code works with a real project. To get started, I'm going to open index.html from the Explorer. At the top of the file, I'll type an exclamation mark and then press Tab. You'll see that VS Code automatically creates the basic HTML structure for us. Now, inside the title tag, I'll change the text to my first project. I'll go ahead and save the file by pressing Command S. To see our results in real time while we work, let's install the Live Server extension. First, I'm going to click the Extensions icon on the left sidebar. In the search box, I'll search for Live Server. I'll choose the Live Server extension and click Install. Now, going back to index.html, I'll right-click inside the file and select Open with Live Server. This will open our page directly in the browser. I'm going to arrange my screen with VS Code on the left and the browser on the right. This way, every time we save our changes, we can see the results immediately. As you can see, the page is still empty, but the browser tab now shows the title we added. Let's head back to the body of index.html and add an h1 heading. Inside that heading, I'll type my first project. Right under that, I'll add a paragraph tag. Inside the paragraph, I'll write, I am learning VS Code. Next, I'll add a button below the paragraph. Inside the button, I'll type click me. Now I'll save the file. As you can see in the browser, we now have a heading, a paragraph, and a button. To connect our CSS file, I'm going back up to the head section. I'll add a link tag there. And for the rel attribute, I'll use stylesheet. For reference, I'm going to use style.css. Now let's open style.css and add a few simple styles. First, I'll select the body element. Let's set the font family to Arial. Next, I'll set the padding to 40 pixels. And finally, let's set the background color to light gray. I'll save the file now. As you can see, the browser now shows a different font, more space around the content, and a light gray background. Next, let's add a few quick styles for the button. I'm going to set the padding to 12 pixels on the top and bottom and 20 pixels on the sides. Let's set the background color to black. Then I'll set the text color to white. After that, I'll remove the border by setting it to none. And to round the corners, let's set the border radius to 6 pixels. I'll save the file once more. As you can see, the button looks much cleaner now. While you're writing your CSS, you might notice that VS Code suggests property names, values, and completions. That helpful feature is called IntelliSense. Moving on, let's clean up our code formatting. Formatting simply refers to the spacing and indentation used in your code. When the formatting is clean, the file becomes much easier to read. To help with this, I'm going to use an extension called Prettier. I'll head back to the extensions view and search for Prettier. The specific one I'm using is called Prettier Code Formatter. I already have it installed, so it's ready to use on my screen. Now let's go back to style.css and make the CSS messy on purpose. I'll put the body styles on a single line and remove some of the spacing. It's still the exact same code, but it's much harder to read now. To fix this, I'm going to open the command palette by pressing Command-Shift-P. If you're on Windows, the shortcut is Control-Shift-P. First, I'll search for Format Document. Then I'll select Format Document from the list. As you can see, Prettier automatically cleans up the spacing and indentation. The functionality of the code hasn't changed at all. It's just much easier to read now. Now, let's make this process automatic. I'm going to open the settings and search for Format on Save. I'll go ahead and enable Format on Save. Let's head back to style.css and make the CSS messy one more time. I'll save the file using Command-S. As you can see, VS Code formats the file automatically as soon as I save it. This is one of those small settings that makes coding feel much cleaner since we don't have to format the file manually every time. Next, let's take a look at the terminal inside VS Code. This is the area we can use when running commands. The nice thing is that we don't even have to leave VS Code to use it. I'm going to open the terminal menu at the top of the screen. Then I'll choose New Terminal. The terminal will open at the bottom of VS Code. As you can see, it opens directly inside the same project folder that is currently open in VS Code. That's important because any commands we run here will be connected to this specific project. If you're on a Mac, I'm going to type pwd and press enter. Pwd stands for Print Working Directory, and it shows the folder the terminal is currently in. If you're on Windows, the command depends on which terminal you are using. If you're using Command Prompt, you can type cd and press enter. If you're using PowerShell, you can also type pwd as well. As you can see, the terminal displays the current folder path. This should point to my first project, since that is the folder we opened in VS Code. After that, I'll type ls and press enter. On a Mac, ls lists all the files inside the current folder. On the Windows command prompt, the equivalent command is dir. And if you're using PowerShell, both ls and dir will work. As you can see, we have index.html, style.css, and app.js, so the terminal is looking at the exact same files we see in the Explorer. If you're on Windows, keep in mind that VS Code also has a built-in terminal right inside the editor. The terminal might look slightly different depending on your setup, but the concept remains the same. It provides a dedicated space to run commands for the project you're working on. For beginners, the most important thing is not to worry about memorizing every single command. Instead, just remember that this bottom panel is where many tools show messages, run servers, install packages, or start your projects. And because it's built directly into VS Code, you can keep your files, the editor, and the command area all in one convenient place. Next, let's look at a few shortcuts that will make using VS Code much faster. You don't need to memorize every shortcut in VS Code, but there are a few that are useful almost every day. The first one is Command P or Control P if you're on Windows. I'll go ahead and press Command P. As you can see, VS Code opens a small search box at the top of the editor. This is used for quickly opening any of your files. I'll search for style.css and then press enter, and just like that, VS Code opens the style.css file. This is much faster than manually searching through the Explorer every time. Now I'll press Command P again. This time I'm going to search for index.html, and just like that, we're back in the HTML file. The next shortcut is Command-Shift-P. If you're using Windows, that would be Control-Shift-P. This opens the command palette. Let me open it one more time to show you. This is where you can search for any VS Code command, such as format document, settings, or anything else the editor can do. I'll press Escape to close it now. To search for something inside your current file, you can use Command F. On Windows, that's Control F. I'll search for the word button. As you can see, VS Code highlights the word within the file. This is incredibly useful when a file gets longer and you need to find something quickly. To search across your entire project, I'm going to use Command-Shift-F or Control-Shift-F on Windows. For this example, I'll search for my first project. As you can see, VS Code shows all the matching files in the search panel. Just to clarify, Command-F is used to search within the file you are currently viewing. However, Command-Shift-F searches through the entire project folder. Another really useful shortcut is Command-D or Control-D if you're using Windows. I'll select my first project in index.html and then press Command-D. As you can see, VS Code automatically selects the next occurrence of my first project as well. This is a great way to edit repeated text much faster. Moving on, another incredibly useful feature is multi-cursor editing. On a Mac, you can hold the Option key and click in multiple places. On Windows, you would use Alt-click instead. As you can see, VS Code now gives us multiple cursors at once. This is extremely helpful when you want to make the same edit across multiple lines simultaneously. That's it for the essential shortcuts I recommend memorizing first. Next, let's take a look at source control and debugging inside VS Code. These two features might look a little advanced at first, but the basic concepts are actually quite simple. To start, I'm going to click the source control icon on the left sidebar. Source control is the area where VS Code displays file changes when a project is using Git. Git is a tool that developers use to track every change made to their code. For example, if we edit index.html, style.css, or app.js, Git helps us see exactly what was changed. As you can see here, VS Code is showing the option to initialize a repository. If a project is already using Git, this same area will show you all the files that have changed. Git is a massive topic that could be its own tutorial, so for now, I'm just showing you where it lives within VS Code. The other feature I want to cover is debugging. I'll click on Run and Debug in the side menu. Debugging is essentially the process of finding out why your code isn't working as expected. Instead of just guessing, debugging allows us to pause the code and inspect exactly what is happening. I'm going to open app.js. Let's start by adding one tiny line of JavaScript. First, I'm going to write console log hello from VS Code. Now, I'm going to click once right next to the line number. As you can see, VS Code adds a red dot next to that line. That red dot is called a breakpoint. A breakpoint tells VS Code exactly where to pause the code when we run it with a debugger. This becomes incredibly useful as your project grows and you need to figure out why something isn't working. Instead of reading through the entire file over and over, you can pause the code at a specific line to see exactly what is happening. That's the main idea behind debugging. To recap, source control is for tracking changes, while debugging is for finding problems in your code. Next, let's make VS Code a little more comfortable for your everyday use. I'll start by opening the command palette using Command-Shift-P. Once the palette is open, I'm going to search for color theme. VS Code will then show you a list of available themes. I'll scroll through a few options and choose one that is easy on the eyes. As you can see, the entire editor changes immediately. Keep in mind that the theme doesn't change your actual code. It only changes how the code looks visually. After that, I'm going to open the settings and search for font size. When recording tutorials, I usually make the font a little larger so the code is easier to see. I'll go ahead and set the font size to 20. As you can see, the code is now much easier to read. Another setting you might find useful is autosave. I'll search for autosave in the settings menu. Autosave automatically saves your files after a short delay. Many people like this because it means you don't have to press Command S every single time. However, I personally prefer saving manually while teaching, as it makes browser updates easier to control. So enabling this is entirely optional. One small habit I like to maintain is keeping the editor clean while I work. At the top, you can see all your currently open file tabs. I'm going to close the extra tabs so that only the file I'm currently working on remains open. This keeps your screen much easier to follow, especially as your projects grow and include more files. And that wraps up the basic settings and workflow habits I recommend starting with. Finally, let's take a look at what you should learn next once you've gotten comfortable with VS Code. As you can see here, we have a real project open with index.html, style.css, and app.js following a standard beginner workflow. Just remember, you don't need to master every single feature in VS Code right at the beginning. The best next step is simply to start building a few tiny projects. To help you out, I have plenty of beginner-friendly projects on my channel that you can start with. There are more than 50 basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript projects available, so you can just pick one and build it step by step. By building these projects, you'll naturally learn more because you're actually using VS Code to write code, fix small mistakes, and see your results in real time. If your goal is to build websites, I recommend starting with HTML and CSS and then moving into JavaScript. However, if you're interested in automation or back-end development, Python is also a great next language to learn. Once you start working on real projects, Git is a vital tool to learn because it helps you track changes and work seamlessly with GitHub. I'm actually making a full video about Git for my channel, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. But the main point to remember is this: VS Code is simply your workspace. The real skill comes from opening a folder, building something small, changing it, saving it, and repeating that process over and over again. That's pretty much it for this beginner VS Code tutorial. If you found this video helpful, please make sure to like it and subscribe for more beginner-friendly coding tutorials. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.